Jason's reign of terror is over. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Jason's unlucky day.
Your Australian Brevin Thompson is back, this time to talk about Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which was the fourth film in the Friday the 13th franchise, and even though this was titled the final chapter, this would later end up being false advertising come the next movie after this, Part 5, A New Beginning, which, by the way, I think Part 5 is mostly trash for the most part. But when it comes to Part 4, it's always been one of my favorites in the franchise. So the film takes place immediately after the events of Part 3. Jason's body is taken back to a morgue, but of course he's not dead. He slaughters his way out of there and begins his new killing spree. And this will eventually bring him into conflict with Tommy Jarvis, played by Corey Feldman. The final chapter by no means is my favorite in the franchise, even though I really like it. I don't like it as much as like Part 6, which is my personal favorite in the franchise, but there's a lot about it that I like. For one thing, Tom Savini's work, especially towards the end, which I'll talk about in a second, they made the right move bringing him back for Part 4, and it has some pretty creative kills, and one in particular, right when Jason wakes up and he kills this corner by hacking his neck with a hacksaw and then twisting his neck around, just I'm like, damn, that's a pretty gnarly kill. And most of the characters, for the most part, are mostly horny people who are just there just to rack up the body count, which is kind of typical for most slasher films. And before Crispin Glover appeared as George McFly in Back to the Future, he was in Friday the 13th Part 4, and he gets a memorable moment where he does this dance, which I always thought was hilarious. And he's trying his best to prove to his friends that he's not a dead fuck, as one of his friends called him. So he ends up having sex with one of these beautiful looking half of the twin sisters, but after that he wants to celebrate by having a glass of wine or whatever, and he's looking for a corkscrew, and it ends up with this one pretty good kill with Jason slamming the corkscrew on his hand and slamming a meat cleaver at his face. Yeah, it has some pretty creative kills, like I said. It's clear that the producers wanted to end the series on a high note, and I think for what they were trying to go with, since the producers wanted to kill off Jason and the franchise, which of course did not happen, and they would end up resurrecting Jason in Part 6, I think for what they were going with for this film, I think it works, especially at the end when it comes to Jason's death, which I think is some of the best work that Tom Savini has done. I'm glad that they brought back Tom Savini for this film, because I loved his work in the first Friday the 13th, and bringing him back was a major plus for a lot of horror fans. And how Jason's death is executed after Tommy slams the machete deep on the side of his head, I was like, now that's how you kill a horror icon. And I'm just I was actually surprised that they had the balls to actually kill Jason, but like I mentioned, that they would end up bringing the character back in Part 6. The third act is easily the best part of the film, and it's why I always like to go back to Part 4 every once in a while whenever I feel like watching a Friday the 13th film. Because, most Friday the 13th fans, I would say a few, most fans, some would put Part 6 as their favorite of the franchise, some would put the original as their favorite of the franchise, some would put as Part 4 as their favorite of the franchise. I'm one of the few that put Part 6 as my personal favorite in the franchise, but I still like Part 4, and It's a lot of fun. It's I mean, it's definitely one that a lot of fans would love, and it's pretty clear why. Because I mean, mostly because of that third act when it comes to like Tommy and Trish like going up against Jason and Tommy eventually killing Jason at the end. So yeah, part 4 is definitely a lot of fun to watch, especially if you're a horror fan. So I'm gonna give Friday the 13th, the final chapter, a B. So what did you think of the film? Let me know in the comments below. And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.